Before we move into a second question and answer session, today's title, of course, is Wonderful You. Now, you can't get inside my head, and you're lucky in that. And I can't therefore bring to you some of the experiences that lie ahead for you in terms that will be technicolor, in terms that will be nuanced, as in emotions and colors and textures and the vibrations that you will feel. So I apologize in advance, but I want to bring to you some of the things that lie ahead for each of us, and I can only do that in words. So what I'm giving you will be a pale imitation of what the experience is actually like. And I've had some of those experiences, but you will too. First of all, imagine you are in the spirit world now. You're not sitting in this room, you're in the spirit world. And you've put together a house. And you've put together a house instantly. You've decided what you want it to be like, what you want it to look like. And it comes together around you. And you think, oh, this is quite nice, isn't it? However, I don't think I like that spare room over there. I think I'll move it over here. And so you see it in your mind's eye as being over here, and suddenly it's over here. And you think, I could change the style of that chair if I wanted to, and I think I will, so you do. And the chair that you've had thus far disappears and is replaced by the chair that you've just created by your mind. And eventually, but for now, you are satisfied with the place that you are living in. And it's surrounded by the flowers that you want, and the bushes and trees that you want, and the landscape that you want. And so you sit down and you think, I could do with a cup of tea, and there it is in front of you. And you pick it up, and there's a nice cup and a nice saucer, and you think, it would be nice if a friend of mine, who I know is on this side of life, were to come and visit. And so you don't pick up the phone, you don't have one of these dastardly mobiles, as I like to call them. You simply send out, would you like to come round for tea? And instantly in front of you, there's your friend. And you sit down and you reminisce about old times and you discuss what you're going to do in the future. And then you get a message mentally, the equivalent of an email, to say that you are needed with some occupation of the soul group. They need your input. And so you say to your friend, I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to go for a moment. And your friend says, that's perfectly all right. I've got other things to do too. And so the scenario of you sitting with your friend freeze frames. Your friend's not moving anymore, at least not for you. And you step out of that picture of your house and you step into the landscape of the soul group. And you say, what is it you wanted me to do? And they say, well, we're working on this project. What's your input into it? And so you sit down with them, not in any rush, leisurely, and you address what needs to be addressed on the level of your soul group. Having done that and being satisfied with what you've input into the soul group, you then move yourself back in consciousness to your home in the spirit world at exactly the same point that you left the conversation with your friend. No time has passed in that conversation. Your friend, meanwhile, has been doing other things in other dimensions and has come back at that exact same moment, for want of a better word. He or she unfreezes and you continue the conversation. You can stop and change time. You can multitask, because time is not what it appears to be on this level. Time is really the passage of experience. How amazing to be able to do that. My father, who was a gardener, he had green fingers and green thumbs. He would just poke a hole in the soil, drop something in, and it would grow. And he has with him a number of our pets. We lost 2 dogs within 6 months, a good number of years ago, and he looks after them. And so there are pets running around. There was also a, not Siamese, what's the word, a Persian cat that my mother had, and he's got that cat with him, Jasper, as well. And he has a garden area there. Now he's growing things, he doesn't need to eat them. And he has the option of actually creating vegetables and plants and blooms in his mind and planting them with his mind or he has the option of doing them the old-fashioned way, of taking seeds, poking a hole in the ground and dropping those seeds in and watering them and watching them grow. And he prefers the latter option, because although he can work as a spirit to instantly create what he wants in that garden, he prefers the hands-on approach. So he has the option of that too. Imagine as a spirit, one day somebody comes for you. Let's say it's the Persian gentleman. He turns up for you where you are in the spirit world. He says, something to show you. Come with me. And you don't refuse the Persian gentleman. You say, all right, I will. And so the landscape around you changes, and you find yourself not standing in the area outside the house where you normally or at this time reside in the spirit world. You find yourself looking down on a world, looking down on a planet. And you are in the equivalent of a huge observatory, huge place. There are people looking through vast windows down on this planet. And the Persian gentleman explains that this is an observatory only in that he has put it visually into terms that you can understand at this point in your spiritual development. But he invites you to stand by the windows and you look down on the planet and you see people there. You see civilizations there. And you know that you can input certain vibrations as the people that are in this observatory are doing, and those vibrations can not impinge but arrive at the point of free will of those people on the planet and affect them if they want to take notice of them. In other words, through their volition, you can affect the growth of that civilization. Not only that, but you can watch that civilization grow and learn from the lessons that are unique to that civilization that you are observing from that observatory. And the Persian gentleman says, well, time for you to go back now. What are we having for tea? Imagine that you are on a boat. It's a big white ocean liner, and it's docked by a sandy shore. And you see that it's sitting not in water, but in a sea of light. And there is a gangplank coming down from one side of this boat onto the shore. And along this gangplank, going up it and boarding the boat, are all kinds of people, all races, all sizes. Some of them are in pajamas. Some of them are in suits and carrying briefcases. Some of them seem to be damaged because they're in bandages. Some of them look like they've just come away from a car crash, a serious car crash. How are they living? Some of them are staggering onto the boat. Some of them are walking onto the boat. But there's a trepidation with all of them. They're slightly afraid of where they're going. And you walk up the gangplank with them, and you emerge on the top deck of this boat. And there's no superstructure on this top deck apart from benches, rows and rows of benches. And you know instinctively which bench to sit at, because there is a spirit more highly evolved than you speaking in your ear. And you sit down at one of these benches and you're with a number of these people that have gone up the gangplank. There's somebody in bandages with a lump on their head. There's somebody in pajamas looking startled. There's somebody in an office suit wondering where their car keys are. And you send out love to these people and you attempt to calm them. And you tell them that everything is all right. And as you move mentally from one person to another, you are given the words, fed the words by your inspirer to say to them to calm them down. And the boat sets off from this shore, silently. It moves out across this great ocean of silver light. And another shore appears in the distance and comes closer. And as you near this shore, you can see people lining the shore in groups. And the people that you've been talking to that are sitting with you, suddenly realize that they are looking at people that they've known and loved. My wife that I thought was gone forever, she's here. My husband, my mum, my dad. They're waiting for me. They're there, they're alive, they're vital. And it's glorious to see the change in these people because the bandages fall away, because the fear falls away. And because of what you've said to these people, being inspired by people from a higher sphere, you have taken away their fear. And you have transported them across in a manner that they can understand to the first stage of the next stage of their spiritual journey. And they want you to come down and meet their mums and dads. And you say, no, I've got work to do. But off you go and be happy and enjoy your new life. And off they go. As they crawled up the gangplank, they skip down it. And they meet their family and they meet their friends. And then they move off into the light and back into their spiritual experience as opposed to a material one. Now that boat exists. That boat is one of the constructs that is used to take people across. And you think, well, why do we need a construct? We need it because the people that go on the boat, go across on the boat, are not yet ready to accept that they are spirits, not yet ready to accept that they can think themselves from A to B simply by thinking about it, and need some sort of logical construct that they can understand to take them from where they have been on earth to where they are going in the spirit world. And you are helping with that. And the boat is huge. And there's just this top deck with all these benches on, and people like you in the spirit world, and like me, while still on earth, sit with them on occasion and talk to them and know what to say because we're given what to say. And at the back of the boat, there is a smaller boat. And the smaller boat has a tent on it. And the tent has very thick material on all four sides. It's rectangular. And there is a spirit in that boat that directs those operations, a very high spirit. And all I have ever seen of that spirit is his or her hand. Because the brilliance that they give off is too much for the people that are traveling on that boat to take in. Imagine now, as the spirit that you are now, as you progress in spiritual understanding, imagine that in the middle of the night, suddenly you're woken up and you recognize the spirit that is standing by your bed. It is an elevated spirit, perhaps it's PG again. Sorry, PG, I'm putting you through a lot of work this afternoon. But as an example, it's PG. In Joan and myself's case, it was the big Indian who would come for us. Independently, two houses, and he would call for Joan and he would call for me. And we would stand up, as we visualized a few moments ago, out of our physical body, and we would move out through the walls of our house as though those walls weren't there. And then we would find ourselves in a variety of places. One time we found ourselves with a Spitfire pilot in France. And his Spitfire had come down in France, had been buried. It was in a rocky outcrop. And the control stick, the flying stick, had gone through his chest and had pinned him to the seat. Now, of course, that was his physical body. But for all those years, he was sitting there, believing that he was still alive and waiting for someone to come for him. And on the dashboard, if that's the right word, on the instrument panel, I should say, of this Spitfire, there were pictures of his mum and his dad, photographs. And I went up to him and I tried to talk to him, listening all the while to what I was supposed to say to him, but he wouldn't move. He wouldn't come out. He wanted his father. And the spirit who was with us on that night said, wait a minute, keep him talking. And he disappeared. And a few moments later, he came back with an older man who transformed in front of me into a likeness of the picture of the boy's father. It was the boy's father. He'd simply transformed himself back to how he looked when the boy had died. And the boy looked at him and said, Dad, and stood up out of his body and the physical body fell away like ashes. He went over to his father, hugged him, and they went off into the light. On another occasion, we were taken out at night, and it was very odd because it was like something from the Twilight Zone. There was a Lancaster bomber sitting on an island in a mist of light. It was on a rocky outcrop that just covered the base of this plane that had its wheels down, and there was nothing all around it except mist and a drop, a precipice. And there were 3 young men standing there in flying jackets. And one of them was quite angry, and was quite angry with me. And he said, "It's all right for you, you've had your life. We haven't." He looked to be in his early 20s. I remember he had ginger hair. And we talked to them at length, and a light appeared like a doorway in front of them, a little ahead of them. And we managed to persuade them to walk through into the light. And as they did so, this angry young man trailing behind, the dark-haired young man who I'd been talking to turned back and said, "Thank you." And they disappeared. And then the bomber disappeared, and we found ourselves back in our beds, in our separate houses. Now, what used to happen between myself and Joan was that we'd ring each other and say, "We were out somewhere last night, weren't we?" There's a gap in my memory. There's one in mine too. And then, independently of each other, we would have total recall of what had happened. Exactly the same story. So, what else can I tell you about what lies in store for you? Yes. In the angelic realm, we looked at galaxies and we looked at stars. We are the creators of galaxies and stars and planets. We are angelic beings. We have forgotten that. And it is our destiny as we move out and through the spiritual spheres and back into infinity and back to our connection with the angelic host to once again create planets and stars. And to investigate those planets and stars, because each planet and each star has a concept woven into it by the angels who create it. It's not there by accident. It's there to bring us a particular set of circumstances should we visit it. And we learn from those circumstances and we bring back our experiences to the angelic host so that the angelic host evolves and then gets more ideas for what it should do with new planets, new creations. We are, each of us, a universe in the making. Universes in the making. We have to remember that. And we have to, if I could leave you with something today, and there's a question and answer session, hopefully if I can get my brain together, to come yet. But I'd like to leave you today with the possibilities that lie ahead of you. Infinite possibilities. Infinity lies ahead of you. You as a universe lies ahead of you. And that universe that you're creating is also within you. We're shoehorned into such a small concept of ourselves on earth. Society tells us we're such a small concept. We're capable of so little. And yet we're capable of so much. And that doesn't depend on what we do for a living, or how we feel we fit into our family or into society. Those are small things. No one of us is greater than any other one of ourselves. We are equal creators, equal angelic beings, equal parts of this universe, equal creators of other universes. Now that to me, I don't know about you, but I find that exciting. That's a bit more exciting than 9 to 5. Or what's on the telly, or what should we shop for this week? And if I could leave you with one thing, and I'm not leaving you yet, but if I could leave you with one thing, it's that knowledge. It's to keep that alive in your hearts. Because by keeping that alive in your hearts, you keep it alive in the world. And it's essential that that connection remains strong and grows stronger. Each of you is a vessel for the light, a beacon for the light, and an ambassador for the light. So in the times when you feel down and you feel lousy and you feel tired and you feel depressed and you feel what's it all about, you know what it's all about. And it is your job as spiritually aware people, as spiritual seekers, to spread that message simply by being you. Because by being you as a spiritually aware person, you radiate out the light. And people won't always consciously take in that light. Sometimes they will. But that light surrounds them. That light infuses them. And that light sets them off on their own spiritual journey. So that we'll get to the point where we will leave here en masse and think, well, we made a bit of a mess of that, didn't we? But it's all right now.